The Prime Minister began this week talking trade and tariffs with U.S. President Donald Trump at the G7.
We must reinforce our strength at home and safeguard Canadian workers and businesses from the unjust U.S. tariffs that exist at present.
The main story, of course, is President Trump delivering on his threat to China, Canada, and Mexico with sweeping tariffs, import levies.
In just 30 days, Canada could raise retaliatory tariffs on U.S. expand into Canadian infrastructure or defense sectors will now find the door closed, or at best, heavily guarded. The message from Canada is subtle. Quotas weren't drafted last minute. They've been in the works for months. These aren't emotional decisions. They're policy tools prepared in advance to activate depending on how the U.S. chooses to act. From a strategic lens, this approach does two things. First, it sends a signal to Washington that Ottawa isn't bluffing. The retaliation isn't just noise, it's functional, targeted, and structured for maximum pressure. Second, it gives Canada flexibility. By adjusting tariff levels based on negotiation progress, Carney's government keeps the door open, inviting diplomacy while holding a credible threat over American markets. From the U.S. perspective, this is a high-stakes wake-up call. If Trump continues to push unilateral demands, the cost won't just be in steel or aluminum, it'll be in lost access to public contracts, reduced export potential, and eroded business trust across the border. American companies that once relied on Canada as a stable partner are now facing unpredictability, ironically not from Ottawa, but from Washington itself. This is the difference between symbolic retaliation and structural deterrence. Canada isn't lashing out. It's laying traps quietly, calmly, and with legal precision. And unless the U.S. shifts course, those traps may soon spring shut. Canada isn't just fighting back with tariffs, it's redirecting entire supply chains. In response to U.S. aggression, Ottawa has unveiled a new strategy channeling billions in public infrastructure spending, defense housing, energy, and transportation for domestically produced steel and aluminum. The message is unmistakable. If the U.S. won't play fair, it won't get a seat at the table. This shift is more than symbolic. It's structural. Canada is rewriting procurement rules to exclude foreign firms unless they come from countries with reciprocal tariff-free trade deals. That effectively locks out U.S. companies from bidding on some of the country's biggest upcoming projects. Bridges, highways, power grids contracts worth tens of billions will now favor Canadian inputs and Canadian labor. At the same time, Canada's Ministry of Finance has opened a loan facility for large industrial firms affected by Trump's trade policies. This isn't just financial aid, it's a lifeline. Companies facing canceled U.S. contracts or higher cross-border costs can now pivot inward, sustain operations, and retool for new markets. From the U.S. side, the fallout is sharp and political. American producers are now squeezed at both ends. First, they're losing Canadian market share, a key export destination for U.S. metals. Second, they're being shut out of public contracts they once counted on. And with steel, aluminum, and construction-heavy states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin already politically volatile, the pressure on local lawmakers is mounting fast. Trump's trade war was meant to bring jobs home. But in Canada's case, it's doing the opposite. Cementing domestic industries, strengthening economic resilience, and forcing U.S. firms out of one of their most stable markets. In trying to control the game, Washington may have just written itself out of the next round. Mark Carney didn't shout. He didn't slam a table. Instead, he did something far more powerful. He set a deadline, July 21st. If there's no progress by then, Canada will escalate its retaliatory tariffs targeting U.S. metals and industries with surgical precision. The message? This isn't open-ended. This is a countdown. At stake is more than just trade. Carney made clear that the broader Canada-U.S. economic and security agreement, the very framework Trump wants to showcase as a win, is contingent on progress. No deal, no signature. And without that agreement, Canada is prepared to expand countermeasures with immediate effect. Stricter procurement rules, tighter import quotas, and wider industry support plans that deliberately exclude American firms. This isn't just policy, it's pressure. Carney has turned time into leverage. Washington can no longer delay or distract. The White House must either move toward resolution or prepare for escalation. In a matter of weeks, U.S. exporters, contractors, and investors could find themselves locked out of a G7 economy with over $100 billion in cross-border trade at stake. For Trump, this is a trap of his own making. The longer he waits, the fewer options remain. Canada is no longer waiting to be rescued by American goodwill. It's building its own exit plan. Quietly, assertively, and with a ticking clock, Ottawa has flipped the script. It's no longer America dictating terms. It's Canada defining deadlines. For 36 U.S. states, Canada isn't just a neighbor, it's a lifeline. From Pennsylvania's steel mills to aluminum foundries in Missouri and auto part factories in Michigan, exports to Canada sustain entire communities. We're talking about over $300 billion in annual cross-border trade, with a huge share tied directly to U.S. manufacturing and energy. But now that access is rapidly slipping away. With Ottawa set to tighten procurement rules and threatening to escalate tariffs by July 21st, American manufacturers are no longer competing, they're bracing for impact. The implications reach far beyond trade numbers. Major U.S. contractors in construction, defense, and public infrastructure are finding themselves locked out of Canadian government projects they once dominated. From national housing developments to clean energy installations and defense procurement, the rules have changed. Only Canadian firms or those from countries with free trade agreements are being prioritized. That excludes most American bidders. In a matter of weeks, decades of North American industrial integration are being unwound. The consequences are already showing. Supply chains are stalling, multi-million-dollar deals are paused or redirected, and capital investments are being frozen across the Midwest and South. Executives aren't waiting to see what happens on July 21st, they're lobbying hard now. And it's not just the CEOs. Union leaders and small business owners are flooding congressional offices with the same urgent message: fix this. The political cost. It's stacking up fast. Senators and House representatives in states like Ohio, Wisconsin, and Alabama, many of whom rode into office on promises to protect domestic industry, are now caught in a bind. Loyal to Trump's trade brinkmanship or respond to the economic pain hitting their own backyards. With the 2026 midterms just months away, the choice is becoming increasingly untenable. For Trump, the real danger may not be diplomatic fallout with Canada, but a voter revolt at home. If Ottawa's countermeasures activate, they won't just disrupt exports. They'll expose a political fault line inside the U.S. between federal trade policy and local economic survival. The next time a senator speaks on tariffs, it might not be about punishing Canada. It could be about saving their seat. Canada isn't just retaliating, it's playing chess. With legal tools, economic leverage, and a ticking 30-day clock, Ottawa is forcing Washington to confront the cost of stubbornness. This isn't a trade spat anymore. It's a calculated test of will, and America may be the one boxed in. So now the question isn't whether Canada will act. They already have. The real question is, will the U.S. negotiate before the damage spreads further? Because if Trump keeps pushing, the next blow won't just hit foreign suppliers. It'll hit jobs in Ohio, contracts in Michigan, and voters across 36 states. What do you think? Should Trump accept a deal to protect American jobs or double down and risk more economic fallout? Join the conversation. Share this if you think the U.S. needs to rethink its strategy fast. Comment: should Trump negotiate now or stay the course? Subscribe to stay ahead of the next economic flashpoint hitting American workers.